As usual, my name is Adriano Caceres, and today I'm going to discuss my recent research paper on the idea that God may or may not be real. With using the PDFs and books featured throughout Google Scholar and the Purdue Library, it was slightly more difficult to cultivate a clear idea with all the licenses and purchases some of the books are trying to get me to pay for. Besides that, the information that I found proved itself to be very different from one another while also remaining closely knit, if you understand what I mean. To what my point is, I brought together several different perspectives. To be precise, I gathered quotes from 5 different literature works, who all had largely different takes on the same side of the argument. These, of course, come from several different sources of material, which in my case was the primary source, Genesis 2 and 3, which gives a quote that I had to explain where I mentioned the purpose of life and how many of us are given meaning through the importance of our lives, which I believed to be hinting at the existence of something far greater than our realization. Edward Fesser's perspective relies on the mechanical and more physical reasoning, which relates to the existence of change and points out to an intentional doing that likely indicates the presence of supernatural forces. Jean-Marie Bessad's point of view utilizes the words of Rene Descartes, where he determines that coming up with something infinitely perfect would eventually lead to a depiction of God, where being so perfect would include the factor of existence. George W. F. Hegel makes a point that is more in relation to the acceptance of God, and that believing in his existence forms a closer relationship with one another. And finally, Richard Swinburne provides a heated response that details the scale of the universe and how, throughout all of it, the only planet that has been shown to inhabit life is none other than Earth. And Swinburne points to the idea as proof of God's power observing us. I will hope to inform you about the different beliefs while I try comparing and contrasting their beliefs with one another. I will talk about atheism, agnosticism, pantheism, deism, and monotheism. So, atheism relates to the denial of supernatural power and relates scientific nature to be the cause of our existence. Agnosticism is the belief that God cannot ever be discovered or that we will ever find any evidence. Pantheism is the belief that God and the universe are one and that everything we know is within what makes up God. Deism is the belief that God created the universe and has no reason to affect the comings of Earth, similar in a way to how National Geographic reporters do not assist nature in any way. And lastly, monotheism is part of several religions that believe in the existence of a singular being that made the universe and all of its aspects. As you could relate, pantheism, deism, and monotheism all believe that there is the existence of a God, but of course, how the God exists and acts differs greatly among beliefs. Atheism and agnosticism are similar in the fact that there is no proof to relate to the existence of a higher being, and the difference between the two I will note is that atheism knows there is no being, while agnosticism has no evidence to either side, separating it from both groups greatly. As it is clear through the placements of the turn-in dates for the paper and the presentation, if you have read through the quotes within my paper, the point among all these authors can become clear. The evidence they present alone can be easy to pass off, but if all of their evidence is brought together, an idea can be formed. And that idea is that God exists, and this idea can come into the realm of possibility for those who don't believe in the existence of God. Besides from that, I understand that the difference in lifestyles and hardship that people go through may push people towards or away from believing. But for the most part, I only wish to see if the union of their writings brings about any form of realization. I found an interesting phrase when researching once before, and it said, "The proof of God's existence is that without him, nothing can be proven." And I find this statement really interesting because of how refusing to the existence of God brings us to a paradox. It is clear to me that attempting to find physical evidence cannot lead to any real results. It is in a way more similar to the idea behind Schrodinger's cat, where we are unknown of whether or not the cat is living or dead, simultaneously making it both in a way, till the box that holds the cat is open. As stated, the whole idea behind the existence of God relates to a similar aspect. Both sides of the argument may never truly know the answer as to whether or not they're correct, only being certain once they have passed. Faith is the difference that makes it so that I believe in the existence of God. And part of that experience of believing or not believing can lie within the lack of indisputable evidence for both, but I believe that knowing either that God is or isn't real before passing would take the enjoyment out of it. With that said, the length that both sides of the argument will go to prove the other wrong extends beyond the nature of it all, in my opinion. I believe that the best way to approach the debate is to attempt to understand the different perspectives of religions, such as atheism, agnosticism, and polytheism. As I've said, their experiences in life can place them in another system of beliefs, and that is just fine. Okay, so for this segment, I'm going to talk about the quotes that I included in my research paper and what they really meant to me. Okay, I'm going to scroll down here. So then it says here that change occurs, examples are all around us. He talks about how the coffee gets colder, a leaf falls to the ground, a puddle grows larger in the rain, then you hit a fly and it dies, and then how these are all examples of different kinds of change. So, what I said was essentially this brings the idea that God put these laws of nature into existence and that its complexity hints at the intention of a higher being. So, then for the next one, it says, for the subjective way of looking at things, God remains something over there or beyond, but the elevation of the subjective spirit to God implies that in this act the one-sidedness of knowledge is sublated, taken up into a higher unity. And then this, of course, tells us that knowing and kind of accepting God will bring us closer to Him, which would form a kind of relationship. And for the third one I'll show you is my first phenomenon, which provides evidence for the existence of God, is the existence of the universe for so long as it had existed. If it has no beginning in infinite time, this is something evidently inexplicable by science. And then it says here what I said, very intense, but it also states that the existence of the universe, that follows lifespan, the only real explanation can be that a being brought it into existence in a way so perfect that it cannot be science that is maintaining it. So then I'm going to go from here. So this is Richard. Oh wait, this is Richard Swinburne. Sorry, this one is Edward Fesser, and then this one was W.F. Hegel. Okay. Now to the conclusion. Coming back to my point, I sincerely hope that you have read the paper that I have made regarding this topic, and can understand my perspective that I'm trying to convey into you. With all of the claims that I've shown you, perhaps a new point of view can be understood. So after this video, do you believe in God? If not, that's okay. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I am Adriano Caceres. See ya.